Okay, so question 2 asks us to solve the following equations. The first one, we have a fraction, so we're going to look for our lowest common denominator. For this question, I would say x squared, because it's the easiest one that we can make all the fractions have the same denominator. So for the first one, I'm going to have to multiply the bottom by x squared, so I multiply the top by x squared also. The second fraction will not have to change at all. The last fraction, I have to multiply the bottom by x to make it an x squared, so I do the same to the top as well. On our next line, I can rewrite these three separate fractions as one fraction over their new common denominator of x squared. And on my next line, I can multiply across by x squared and rearrange the top line to make it easier for myself. In order to answer this question, I'm going to have to go straight to my formula, subbing in the values to show the examiner that I know how to sub in to my quadratic formula, and that I can correctly pick out the coefficients. If this were a 10-mark question, you might be hitting that 4 or 6 mark potentially here by showing that you not only can rearrange the fractions in the first part, but that you can also identify your quadratic formula and sub in your coefficients correctly. Okay, I am showing as much work here as I can because I want to show again to an examiner that I can follow through with this question, and also leaving as little room for error as possible. So it's tempting to sub this into your formula quite early, but you're really better to leave it for as long as you can so that you're avoiding putting too much into the calculator. And we can leave this in surd form or in decimal form because we're not told either way. I'm just going to write it in decimal form to 3 decimals. And our second version of that is minus 10.612. And those are our two answers, and again, we can highlight. The next question is 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x minus 6 is equal to 2 over x. So once again, common denominator we need to get for these ones. So for the first fraction, we'll have 1 on the top. On the bottom, we are going to have x plus 2, which was there in the first place. We're going to multiply by x minus 6, and we're going to multiply by x. Okay, so on the top, we have to multiply by the parts that we're adding, which is the x minus 6 and the x. Okay, the next one, we have 1 on the top. Again, we have x minus 6 on the bottom. I am multiplying the bottom part by x plus 2 and by x. So on the top, I'm multiplying by x plus 2 and by x. And lastly, we have, I suppose, the longest part. So I'm multiplying on the bottom by x plus 2 and x minus 6. So I have to also multiply on the top by x plus 2 and x minus 6. Now, tidying that up a little bit, on the top of this first fraction, I will get x squared minus 6x. From the next fraction, I will have plus x squared plus 2x. And from the first part, we know that that's all over x. Multiply by x plus 2, multiply by x minus 6. On the other side of the equal sign, I have 2, and we can multiply out these two brackets. We will get x squared minus 6x plus 2x, so minus 4x, and then 2 by minus 6 will give us minus 12. And that is, again, all over the same denominator. So that was, I suppose, the idea is to get your common denominator so that you have, I suppose, by definition, the same thing on the bottom of both the fractions. We can then multiply across by that common denominator just to make our sum a bit easier for us, so that we can get rid of the fraction. And we can multiply out that 2 as well on the right hand side there. Okay, next we are going to be simplifying. So on the left hand side, I have 2x squared, I have minus 4x, and that is equal to 2x squared minus 8x minus 24. So we can bring all the x's maybe to the left hand side, and that will leave me with 4x altogether, and equal to our minus 24 here. And then we get that x must be equal to minus 6 as our answer there. And again, we can highlight that for ourselves. Okay, so moving on to the last part, we have y squared plus 4y all squared plus 7 by y squared plus 4y plus 12 is equal to 0. Okay, a question like this we need to be able to identify as one of the substitution ones. So we can let x be equal to y squared plus 4y. Thus I can rewrite my equation as x squared plus 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. Okay, so then I'm looking for two numbers that will multiply to give me 12 and add to give me 7, and those two numbers will be 3 and 4. Skipping ahead here just to go straight to our factorizing, straight to our brackets, I'll get that the two answers for x are x minus 3 and x minus 4. We then have to use our earlier substitution. So we'll work on this side first, rearrange it to get a new quadratic. We're now looking for two numbers that multiply to give you 3 and add to give you 4, and those two numbers would be 3 and 1, and we get that y is minus 3 and y is minus 1. Similarly, on the other side, we have that y squared plus 4y is equal to minus 4. We can rearrange, and we get y plus 2 and y plus 2, which means that y is equal to minus 2 and y is equal to minus 2. And those are our answers. So obviously we have two of the same, y is minus 2 and y is minus 3 and y is equal to minus